I believe it's fair to say that the 2010s can be seen as a golden era for games. A decade that began with a revolutionary gem that was Skyrim, spiraled into a decade of innovation for this young medium. The early years of the decade saw AAA studios develop new ideas constantly. Whether it be in the annual releases of first-person shooters, the constantly expanding worlds of action-adventure games, the storytelling capacities of the likes of The Walking Dead, and the fleshed-out RPG elements of The Witcher 3. Every genre saw an uptick in quality in this decade, as developers were given the budgets and the freedom to utilize new technologies to their highest capacity, and it seemed the quality of games would exponentially rise and rise. And when Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2 was announced, it seemed this industry-wide innovation was being taken to the next level, as we would see a game with as close to photorealistic graphics as we had ever seen, a world as expansive as the grandest RPG, with as much attention to detail as the tightest linear game. We would see gameplay engines that maximized immersion, an evolving environment that would throw countless encounters in our face, and of course a narrative that despite a 50-hour length would leave all of those who experienced it in tears. This, it seemed to many, was the future of the industry. However, what would follow the release of Red Dead 2 wasn't necessarily a barrage of continuously innovative games. Sure, there would be some great AAA titles that would follow it, but the trends in the industry immediately following this masterpiece would see a fairly steep decline in comparison to the decade's beginning. More and more, we would see hugely ambitious games announced, only to be delayed, to be cancelled, or most poignantly, to be released unfinished, released broken, released without the content that was promised in the marketing. Now don't get me wrong, it's impossible to blame the release of Red Dead 2 for the business malpractice of other publishers, but I think it's more than safe to say that the standard Red Dead Redemption 2 set led other publishers down a rabbit hole that led to a steadily worsening product put out to customers. Let me explain. Rockstar, love them or hate them, have stood as trailblazers of the video game industry for the last 3 decades, and when they've taken certain paths, other games have followed suit. The release of Grand Theft Auto 3 spawned a barrage of third-person open-world crime simulators. Their methods of open-world design undoubtedly inspired the likes of Ubisoft and Square Enix, and that was for good reason. What they did made money. So much money, in fact, that when it came to the development of Red Dead 2, Rockstar had, for all intents and purposes, unlimited resources. With the most financially successful game of all time under their wing, they had a constant stream of revenue from Grand Theft Auto Online, alongside a flawless reputation that gave them absolute freedom to essentially do what they wanted. And the result? A game 5 years in the making. A game that many consider the greatest of all time, and a game that I would argue changed the trajectory of this industry for years to come. The games industry has always followed trends, and the trends that Red Dead 2 set, the commitment to long development periods, huge expansive open worlds, and gargantuan stories, fed into one of the more underwhelming periods in the industry's history. Before Red Dead 2, the majority of studios would release a game every 1 to 2 years, if not multiple per year, with numerous development studios each being given reasonable budgets to create smaller, more concise games. But the standard Red Dead 2 set led studios to shy away from such excessive releases. It pushed studios to strive for a level of perfection and quality which was honestly unrealistic. Without the endless resources and time of Rockstar, studios' ambitions became too high, a fact shown by the number of games labelled disappointments over the last 5 years, and in particular, Cyberpunk 2077. Now to be fair, CD Projekt Red had already garnered an incredible reputation thanks to their work on the Witcher series, and their decision to take 5 years to create supposedly the most immersive and expansive open world RPG was one that fans welcomed, as audiences' trust in the publisher was at an all-time high. But on release, Cyberpunk was shown to be far from what people expected. It was broken, it was empty, it entirely lacked the immersion that it was being sold on, and as such, people revolted. Although in recent years the game's been worked on to the point of being playable, its release date will always be remembered, and it's a phenomenal example of how expectations could not be matched. This same formula transferred over to the Assassin's Creed series with the release of Valhalla, which Ubisoft took an extended period of development to create. A sprawling, expansive open world full of random encounters, supposedly engaging side missions, and a 50-hour runtime, a formula that had proven to be the height of the industry, simply couldn't be achieved, as Valhalla fell flat for a huge section of the gaming audience. The biggest problem with this reliance on scale, scope, and size was that it cost developers too much. It forced them to utilize all of their resources, all of their manpower, and all of their money, putting all of their eggs in a single basket, and oftentimes failing to see the return on their investment that Rockstar is almost guaranteed. Because these resources were completely tied up in massive projects, it left gaming audiences with a significantly smaller number of options as to what they could play. No longer could they sink their teeth into 5 or 10 AAA games a year, and thus a lot of people turned away from the medium. However, there was a silver lining to this, as it led to a number of smaller games to get significantly more shine. Games like Stray, Hades, and A Plague Tale all took off, as audiences waited for the next grand-scale AAA game, but of course this led to AAA developers losing their ability to innovate, as without a consistent stream of titles, they couldn't build on old systems in the same way. This exact issue led to games like Spider-Man Miles Morales feeling so similar to their past entries, as the constant improvements of the industry slowed down significantly. Of course, there were titles like Elden Ring that followed this formula and succeeded, but looking at the last 5 years, the disappointments far outweigh the successes. Now don't get me wrong, I love Red Dead 2. But I still think that other than Elden Ring, no game has come close to matching its level of achievement since its release. It was ahead of its time in too many ways to count, and that is exactly the problem. By setting the standard that high, even a new console generation didn't feel like a big leap. By setting the bar that high, everything that tried to match it felt underwhelming in comparison. By releasing the best game of all time, Rockstar, at least for a while, killed the video games industry. However, I do believe we are on the way back up. A number of games companies have announced a new focus on returning to smaller, more compact games, and hopefully that will lead to a higher minimum standard. Hopefully, that change will lead to games being released in a complete state, and hopefully it will lead to a wider array of experiences for gamers worldwide. Most importantly though, this will hopefully lead to the medium that I love, the medium that I've seen grow so much over the last 2 decades, continue to grow, continue to innovate, and return to its golden age. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, it would really be appreciated if you could hit like, and if you're new here, please do hit subscribe with post notifications turned on. Also, let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me in the comments down below. Have I just been missing all the great AAA games? Let me know. If you'd like to see an exclusive playthrough of Assassin's Creed Unity, please do check out my Patreon link in the description down below as well, and thank you so much to all my patrons for the support. With all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Found a Scarab, and I'll see you in the next one.